and welcome to episode 2 of Eat This, Drink That with food obsessor and TV host Ali Khan and wine and beverage expert Steve Greer. And I'm the producer, Ryan Crosby, and we are here for our podcast, episode 2. Ali, what is your Eat This for today?
I say this because there's always going to be an exception or more than one exception. There are going to be a few exceptions. But just consider this the 11th law of the 10 Commandments. You know, Moses dropped the other tablet. We know how that went down. I will not pay for Indian food. I won't do it. There's two main reasons. One is when you grew up eating something, like maybe my dad was a peanut farmer, and I had all the peanut butter in the world. I just won't pay for peanut butter. I don't know. That's just, it's like, what is this? This is supposed to be free. I grew up with it, whatever. And the other thing, too, is when you go to most Indian restaurants, it's like Groundhog Day. Every menu's the same. Hey, look, it's the same dishes over and over and over again. And then let me just follow up is when you're sitting down and you're eating there, and I'm me, right? And I'm looking at them, and them and me know that we're the same. And I'm just looking at them like, don't do this. Don't rip me off here. And you order like one of those dishes, and it's like, ooh, look at this beautiful chicken tikka masala. The red, creamy, smoky sauce, right? You know, and then the questions start. Do you want rice or bread? Both. What is this? One or the other. It should be both. It's carbs. Keep it coming. The restaurant next door gives you a bread basket. You're trying to nickel and dime me on white rice and wheat. Okay? Hey, that stinks. Then, and this is the real thing, is when you're spooning out the dish and you're like, ooh, okay, here's some sauce. Here's some sauce for your rice. Here's some sauce for you, Steve, okay? And then you're like, okay, some chicken. And then you're like, wait, hang on. Where's all the chicken? It's all sauce. And I think about that waiter and I'm like, you knew and you still did this. It is a ripoff. And then the worst part, okay, is like the whole buffet bit. Because the buffet is just like, do you want the buffet? And I'm like, well, way to surrender. Way to like I don't want to put you out. I certainly don't want your kitchen to cook some food, you know? Just get the buffet. Right. In fact, you can do my job. You get your own plate. I won't do it. Not doing it. No more Indian.
I'm glad you mentioned buffets because I hate buffets. I think they're gross. I really hope COVID has just decimated the buffet.
Oh,
they're gone.
Yeah. Buffet.
If there's one restaurant trend that COVID could benefit in getting rid of, it's buffets.
Yeah.
And Indian food buffet is very bad because, I mean, you have to, it's got to be prepared to order.
Yeah.
It has to be prepared to order.
Where's Indian food buffet at? That is something that I've never been to. Like, where is that in
I used
Los
to go to one, I'm pretty sure, Burbank, Pasadena. Basically, Colorado. Yeah. You just go in Colorado.
Isn't there one, I love Indian food. Growing up in Cincinnati, we had a fair share of Indian restaurants, so I love Indian food. Crown Indian Plaza, so I guess that's technically Hollywood. I think it's on Melrose. I think they had a buffet. India's restaurant over in Los Feliz definitely had a buffet for lunch. Buffets were always the lunch option. Yeah. So you go in, spend $15, and it's 4 dishes, overcooked paneers, and no naan. Yeah, no naan anywhere. The paneers are dry and crumbly and overcooked. Indian buffet food is awful.
Yeah. You know, it's the only place where you can actually get dry sauce. Like,
yes, right.
The sauce is dry. And it's because it's sitting in a steam tray so long under heat. So, yes, the bacteria is kept away, but it's literally like just slowly evaporating away till it's just paste. because dry sauce is paste. It's so bad, and yet people, I think that ultimately there's a challenge, right? I think when you have certain kinds of food cultures and they're introduced into America, they have to kind of play the money game. Vietnamese food.
Right.
Do you want some pho? Here's a bucket. Do we have a deal? Like, we could just have a normal pork. If you made pho at home, it's like, oh man, I mean, and then the worst part is people are like, oh, I can't go there anymore. The MSG. You ate a soup this big. A baby could bathe in the bowl. You know what I mean? You ate out of a sink. Like it's just terrible. Yeah.
So Ali, though, with that though, like you said, there's a challenge to it. So saying I will never buy Indian food, doesn't that make you want to find the place that you will patronize, like even more? Don't you want to try places more?
There have been exceptions to the rule, and this is one of the few times where I could really, really, really absolutely stand behind a place that we put on TV. In Washington, D.C., there's a restaurant called Rasika. And I want to also emphasize, it's not called India's Tandoor Oven or Jewel of India or the dozens upon dozens of unimaginative names with noun and India. Okay? It's just, come on.
I like when the name of like the dish is in the name of the restaurant or something, when it's like.
I think at least there's some sort of English reference where they're just like, just to get it out of the way, this is a curry house. Like they won't even acknowledge the country or culture. Curry house, like diner. Oh wow! It's amazing right now. This is so cool. I found a dryer sheet in my shirt. Look at this. I look down. I'm like, what is going on? It's a clean shirt, everybody. Rasika in Washington, D.C.
Quarantine life.
You should look it up. It is a
gorgeous neighborhood in D.C.
I don't know. I mean, a nice one. DuPont circle. I don't know. I mean,
DuPont circle?
Yeah,
it's in DuPont?
Yeah, I'm just spitballing. It sounded good. Beautiful restaurant, fine dining restaurant. It has one of those like visible wine cellars. I went there when we were shooting a show, and a friend of mine who's Indian was like, we should go eat here. And we went there for brunch. And what's really cool is, they have they're going to have dishes that you'd probably see at the India's Tandoor Oven place. They're executed very well. It's simply not cheap. It's expensive. There's no buffet there. And they also have stuff that's a little bit more interesting. This dish that we had, and we did it proper Indian style, meaning we order a bunch of dishes and we all share. There you go. Modern Indian cuisine. So beautiful looking plates, right? I mean, even like the calamari and stuff like that. There's certain things that just are typical, even amongst people like myself. I didn't grow up eating calamari. We had a dish called chicken tikka masala French toast. And what's really fascinating about the dish is French toast in and of itself isn't necessarily, even though it's on the sweet side of the menu, it takes syrup to make it sweet. All it really is bread and egg wash, right? And chicken tikka masala is a dish that's savory, but at the same time, very creamy. And there is a bit, just a hair of sweetness in there. A little bit of the sugars that come off the tomato. And
in the creaminess alone.
It is so amazing to scoop that chicken tikka masala with the French toast. Ooh. And, I think we had some champagne. So actually, Steve, I mean, my God, you should see just the wine list alone and pairing drinks with this such, flavor-forward cuisine. Super fascinating.
It looked good. That website looked really good. That
and
food.
It's in basically Judiciary Square. It looks like. That's in the heart of DC.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, and there's a few other restaurants in New York City that are a little more regional specific. So the broad strokes about Indian food is most of what you see is what's considered Northern Indian food. A lot of meats,
Okay.
because meats are going to sell on American menus, right? And basically a lot of those quote all-star dishes. And the truth is the volume just isn't there. I don't think for Indian restaurants in general. If you're in England, I almost it's like reversed with Mexican food and Indian food. In
Right.
England, Indian food is the quote Mexican food in that it's this very very
Isn't it the national
What's
dish?
that?
Isn't the national dish of England an
Yeah,
Indian
yeah,
dish?
chicken. I mean, I think they made basically out of popularity because of those curry houses, chicken tikka masala. I mean,
I think tikka masala is like the national dish
and
of
it's
England.
essentially an English
yeah.
invention. I mean, I think it was literally created for the British when they were in India to essentially kind of like
Doing
cover
the
their
empire
palates,
stuff.
but it works,
Right.
and now it's part of canon. Whether how authentic it is or not at this point, it's certainly part of the conversation. But places that are a bit more regional are great. Places that are a little bit more divey, and you can kind of tell by the crowd who's eating there. That helps a lot too. But the lion's share of Indian restaurant, it's still very hard to find this stuff. I mean, there's some noted exceptions in places like Houston, Chicago, New York City, as I mentioned. I want to say the Bay Area too, but kind of tricky. There's just a lot. There needs to be more.
We didn't really have that. It's not that great in the Bay Area, or at least I haven't found
Pasadena's got a
that
little
great Indian restaurant.
Pasadena's got a little Indian food thing going here.
Yeah.
For sure. And I found a restaurant kind of near the mountain, like not near the other Indian restaurants. It was off the beaten path, and it had sort of the legacy dishes, but it had a bunch of dishes I hadn't heard of. And I got those. I literally texted you because I was like, Con, I think I found like some good. It was a couple of years ago because I was like, dude, because it just wasn't like. The three dishes that every place has. They had all these interesting ones I hadn't heard of, and I saw all those, and it was great. And but yeah, so there's a cool Indian thing going on here. And then it was so funny. This one time I went and stayed in San Diego for work, and I stayed near this campus, I guess you will. It was a business. And the only restaurants in town were Indian. There was like 20
Wait,
Indian
where were you?
restaurants.
Where was this?
In San Diego area. It was near one of the big tech companies, and like we were in restaurants, and there was like literally like 20 Indian spots.
That's what's up. I know a guy who he's a Food Network chef, Jet Tila. He was on a tournament of champions just now. He's been up and all over Food Network. One of the things he does is he's a consultant for a company that does like the food programs for like Cisco, for like all these big tech companies and their campuses, because they got a lot of folks that they're recruiting from the Asian continent. And part of the perks of that job, and there's loads of them in tech, is like they'll be like, oh, stay on campus. We have 19 restaurants here, and part of it is addressing like that whole food culture right there.
Well, I have a question. So when I was last in London, this is 2 years ago, maybe.
First of all, by the way, I'm so jealous of you because that is something that I'm dying to do, is to go specifically a place called Tayyab's in London for kebab. But go on.
Okay. I was just trying to find the name of the one that I really loved. It was in like a food hall place. I thought it was Sri Lankan. I can't find the name. I thought I saved it. It was brilliant. And then my friends there in London just took me to curry houses where we just ordered to-go food and sat at their house and drank beer. And actually, my favorite pairing for Indian food is cider. And super traditional ciders. So either Normandy ciders.
Is this your drink that? Are we edging into the
drink that?
So.
No, we don't have to. We can go back because I have a question for Ali. And then Basque ciders, really weird, funky Spanish ciders with Indian food is amazing. I like the idea. You mentioned they had a great champagne list. That would be brilliant. But my question is, you make this at home now. What is your to-go dish at home?
Oh, thank you.
And what tips do you have for cooking Indian food at home?
Done.
Because
Oh,
it always feels a little too. I'd rather go out to get it
right.
because I don't know how to cook Indian food.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I have to tell you too. Like, I have 50 cookbooks, and I have a beautiful little homemade book made by my parents' friend. That was all her recipes and stuff. That being said, like, there is so much to the cuisine, and so much of it, I think, was lost in the generation of my parents, because for a lot of them, they grew up with a tremendous amount of cheap labor. So it was easy to have, like, it sounds like luxurious to be like, oh, someone cooked for us, but it actually wasn't an expensive endeavor. There is just so much labor out there, and all of them had to pursue higher education to get out, right? So the art of cooking was something that kind of was rediscovered, and even then, there's a whole lot more to it. So in my kind of forays of trying to, again, not really having like my own library of mom's home cooked dishes or whatever, because they weren't that good. Just God's honest, right? I've started to explore a little bit. First of all, to your first question, what do I make? Almost, I don't want to say every Meatless Monday because it sounds depressing, but I make this so often I don't even think of it as Indian food. It's just part of the staple. We make dal. I make dal all the time. So lentil curry, either made with, it could be lentils. It's interesting. Dal could be made with lentils or split peas. So technically those are different, but in the conversation of dal, it's a matter of choosing, right? And I use a really wonderful device for cooking Indian food. I use an Instant Pot. So pressure cookers are huge in India, and an Instant Pot is just a brand of pressure cooker that's got a great electronic interface, right? So it's it's like a microwave. It's got settings and timers and all that good stuff. And so
it's like a stew. So Instant Pots they just like
it's an electronic pressure cooker. And the pressure cooker basically speeds up the hours of simmering on the stove. And really after that, it's just a matter of figuring out like what elements you do when. So for example, with the Instant Pot and dal, what you use with the Instant Pot is you actually cook the lentils or split peas in the Instant Pot, and they're very soft and they're ready to go. But that's it. It's almost like a rice cooker, right? Okay. Then separately you'd have a pot, and then look, it always starts with cooking down onions. I always cook them for about 10 minutes on a medium low to heat, usually a fine dice. They start to go pale yellow and just slowly kind of caramelize, usually about 10 minutes is the way to go. And then I add the garlic for a minute or two, and then I have a recipe for garam masala that I'll tell you about in a second. And then I add the lentils, and you can add chicken stock, you can add a little water, and then you just simmer it to consistency. But the total time of the Instant Pot for cooking lentils is, the recipe says 6, I cook it for 10 minutes, plus there's the time it takes for the pressure to build and then for it to release. So if you're cooking on an Instant Pot and you've been cooking for an hour, it's going to take a while before that pressure releases. So there is some kind of quote planning ahead, but a lot of inactive time. And you can make it in a second. So the way I kind of learned about using an Instant Pot is there's this woman who, she's Indian, living in the States, and she's like a scientist, like a physicist or something like that. And she basically started using it, and she started making all these recipes for the Instant Pot. And she had a dish that blew up on the internet, and they started calling her the butter chicken lady because of this butter chicken recipe. And then she made a cookbook, great cookbook for the Instant Pot. We should post it later. And I've been using that to cook a variety of dishes. The butter chicken is lit. In fact, this whole thing of literally, all right, I'm not going to Indian restaurants anymore. I made the butter chicken, and when I ate it, I was like, this is restaurant Indian food. This is what you would go and order up from the restaurant or the Uber Eats, the DoorDash, the blah, blah, blah. You can literally make that at home. The Instant Pot really, she taught me so much about how to perfect cooking chicken breast curry, right? And then the other big factor, and I pulled this from the book, and this will be huge for you. You need a recipe for a garam masala. What you need is a recipe for what your Indian spice blend should be. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you.
I was going to say the spice stuff seems to be the most intimidating aspect, and the part that could be lost in translation over the years is getting the spices.
So this is what's interesting. For all the curry recipes that I've seen up to this point, you will have a garam masala, which is basically like a curry powder, like a mix of a variety of spices, right? And then certain recipes will say, and add some cumin. And add some fenugreek. So it'll be the garam masala plus maybe a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And it's just like barbecue rub. Like there's barbecue rub in general, and then there's, ooh, I want to emphasize the sugar. Or, ooh, I want this thing to all be salt and pepper. You know what I mean? It's just about picking and choosing what flavor profile works. But the first step, my friends, is getting a coffee grinder that you can use just for spices and getting this list for the garam masala. And once you have that, and you make it fresh, you're in business. You are in a whole other place. I mean, I will say, you can buy a curry powder, that's great, but the problem with all spices that are already ground is they are on a fast track for going stale. So if you use it fast, that's great. I've used curry powder. I peeled open the thing of curry powder. I'm like, this is jamming. I'm using this. This is fresh, and like dried spices can go flat too. So there's some elements to it, but it's just go out and make yourself that garam masala. It's the same freedom as making your own barbecue rub. When you do that, you are just unlocking, your, I don't want to say you're opening the Pandora's box, that's kind of negative. It's like you kind of solved a Rubik's Cube. I haven't found out to get it, but yes.
I love that you brought up fritters. I just found the restaurant that I ate at it was in Covent Garden. It's called Darjeeling Express. The most amazing garlic prawns with Indians that were unbelievable, but lentil fritters that I had never had before. And so can you do that with the pressure cooker?
No, and you need a fryer for that. So that's the thing. I mean, those things are awesome. It's just, now, what would be interesting in the world of gimmick cooking devices, air fryer. I mean, that could be, because look, we got it, all this stuff has been like, fruits of COVID, right? So that's where the air fryer came from. Right. Instant Pot we got before COVID quarantine happened, but we use it a ton now. An air fryer could be just the tip. I've deep fried before. I remember the spatter I got here, Yeah. And once that happened, I was like, I don't want to do that again. It hurts. Yeah. And then you have all this oil, and it's just not like, I mean, there's certain things I'm willing to put up with. You know what I mean? Like lighting up charcoal. The deep fryer, it's just not, of all the things, not for me. But I think an air fryer would be the way to work with that.
So my question, I guess, was I didn't phrase that correctly. Do you have to make lentil fritters? Do you have to use cooked lentils first and grind them up? I don't know how you make lentil fritters.
The only thing I can tell you, because I've never personally made them, but I used to eat a lot of this stuff all the time. If I recall correctly, all you really need to do is, I mean, they have to be soft, right? But then you have to mash them up in like I feel like my mom would have used a blender or food processor really to make.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, you might have to soak them overnight.
Yeah, it's so funny. The other hack I've been doing with dal for years was getting lentils and cooking them in the rice cooker. I have been using some sort of shortcut device, and I've never made falafel. So I feel like if you can uncover falafel, you can uncover the fritter. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But again, these are things I'm happily willing to outsource.
We'll dive into it more, I guess, as we go.
You know
along.
what? I have my walking assignment. I'm going to make a dal fritter in my air fryer. I'm going to figure out this dal fritter thing that you had. What was it? What was the restaurant called? Darjeeling Unlimited?
Darjeeling Express. It was in this food hall. I think it's Covent Garden. It was amazing. And the food hall was packed. Like, only way I got in was I was on that trip alone. It was kind of a work trip, so I just went in with no reservation and said, "Can you get me in?" And they're like, "You have 45 minutes." And they sat me over on a one top, and I ate like 5 courses in 45 minutes and left, and then just walked around.
What should I drink with this? I'm gonna make these doll fritters. I'm gonna figure it out. So I'm going to
segue over to Steve.
I'm going to find an Indian restaurant and order doll fritters.
Okay.
And then I want you to try pairings. So just so happens that I've had a difficult time in Colorado finding the ciders that I really like. There is a Basque cider called Izatagi.
It sounds Japanese. What?
Yeah, I know. And I'm probably mispronouncing it because it is Basque, but I did find this one. So these are Sidra Natural.
That's crazy.
This is, so think just above Bilbao is Basque country.
Okay.
And they're using traditional apples. So bitter apples, sweeter apples, and acidic apples. And you have to use all 3 to get the right blend. Everything is wild fermentation, which usually brings out more funk and less sweetness. Okay. So wild fermentations, just like the lambics that we talked about on our last show. I think with lambics, they have discovered 50 different microbes inside the bottle that is all contributing to flavor.
You're not easing any of my concerns, by the way.
I imagine Basque ciders have to be somewhat similar. Okay. There's probably not just yeast that's creating the flavors and transforming the sugars. There's bacteria and.
So let me get it, just because you're kind of digging into this, and I feel like I should learn this. Can you just give me a very, very quick, brief 101 on is fermentation? You said wild fermentation. Like, what is fermentation? Yeah. Like, you're talking about all these apples and stuff. What is like a quick,
the quick easiest thing? Yeah. The quick easiest thing is to get alcohol, you have to have sugar in some source. So depending on what you're using, you might have to transform a carbohydrate into a sugar for the yeast to eat. Then you have to have yeast. More commercially driven cider manufacturers or breweries or wine, they're going to use cultivated yeast that is narrowed to get the exact flavors and alcohol levels that they want. Whereas wild fermentation, you don't know where it's going, and it might take months, and you just have to leave it and just let
nature run its course, literally.
Yes, you don't have to control.
Does cider do this particularly?
Yeah. So apples have a ton of sugar, so sugar's not the issue. It's how dry you ferment the liquid all the way out. So there's more commercial ciders that are very sickeningly sweet, that really are linear in flavors. They have no complexity whatsoever. You're not going to want to drink those. I mean, in Normandy, this one, Etienne Dupont,
that looks nice.
It's an AOC. It's just like a AOC protected cheese or AOC protected wine. There's a AOC, what's AOC for cider in Normandy. This actually is not, because this is just organic from Etienne Dupont, Cidre Brut de Normandy. If you can see that.
This is really cool. So AOC, meaning the government's delegated that if this is from this place, it has to be done a certain way, correct?
Yes. There's rules to protect both all the producers within the AOC and the quality of the production.
Can we see that bottom? Let me see the Normandy one again.
Yeah. So, and there's sparkling ciders too from Normandy.
So what I love there, see, that's AOC cider. That is like the antithesis of like the hard seltzer movement right there. That's the antithesis. Now let me see the one from Basque Country.
So this is also unpasteurized and unfiltered. So you're not clipping off the edges of the flavors. You're allowing the full spectrum of flavors that come from wild fermentation and different apple sources. So There's the three kinds: the bitter, the acidic, and the sweet or culinary.
You know, when he said like unfiltered, it just makes me think of, socks and Birkenstocks. You know what I mean? It's like, the hippies happy, like, oh yeah, this is raw.
And this is the Basque Cider.
So see, you know what I love about this? That is the kind of bottle I'll see in that random market. Like, for example, say in East Hollywood, and it's like, you're like, what country is this? I don't think it's Russia. I don't know where. Nope. I don't know if it's. Are we in the Balkans?
That's like the Los Angeles.
Yeah. It's just like, what is
the Los
this?
Angeles
What world is this? Amazing.
So for everybody who's just listening to this podcast and isn't watching the video, we're gonna post both of these ciders on our Twitter feed, so you know what we're talking about. So there is a craft brewery cider movement too in the United States. I have to say there was one that I've been trying to find, and I'm really sad that this guy is no longer making cider. It was called Troy. I'm going to say it was about 8 years ago, maybe 9. It was some dude from Sebastopol that discovered a unkept, forgotten apple orchard somewhere in Sebastopol that were not culinary apples. They were bitter and acidic.
And Sebastopol's in California, right?
Yeah. So up in Sonoma, and
they have a pretty big seed bank there. It's a very food farming.
And in my head, I remember this orchard maybe being 100 years old, but he persuaded the people that own the land to give him all the apples, and he made these ciders with wild fermentation and unfiltered, and just. He took the apples, he made the juice, he let it ferment, and it was extraordinary.
Wow.
Extraordinary. They're gone. I can't find them. I don't think he's making cider anymore.
Oh, man. Troy, if you're out there, come back to us.
And it was very Basque. It was very Basque in style.
So what does that mean? Wild fermentation? Does Basque refer to?
And your flavors are not just like biting into a sweet gala apple. Mm-hmm. It's more earthy and funky. Is the best way to describe it.
I mean, aren't ciders kind of teetering the line between like a light beer sometimes and also like a more sudsy thing? I feel like they run the gamut.
Sometimes they have a a winey quality to it. Especially the Basque, and then the Normandy ciders are more straightforward, but the flavors and the especially with the sparkling Normandy cider, it's just fun. And it's very light, so the alcohol levels on this are, where is it? Hold on. 5.5. So you can sit around with a bunch of Indian food, either from the restaurant or at your house that you made, and just drink ciders. And so think of them as session beers, but even lighter, to be honest, because most session beers from craft breweries now are at least 6.5% to 7%.
I have to say, the Indian food part is really selling me on it, because it's a tough food to pair with. I feel like I just, I don't know why. I mean, it is and it isn't. Like, there's just not certain. It's hard because the food's so strong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's so of flavor. And I feel like it would, one time I got this wine, a Paul Hobbs cab, and the guy was saying, oh, that probably beat up your steak. Like, this wine was so powerful. And it was like, steak, go away, steak, I'm drinking wine. And that's not the point. Like, you want them to kind of mix, hey, music, you want to mix the feeds. It's true. It really is true. Because
how many Indian restaurants have you gone to where you saw Woodbridge Cabernet on the list?
Oh, I mean, first of all, if they have in wine, it's probably horrible. You know what I mean? That means it's overall worse. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yes. Yeah. It.
And then, I mean, this is totally off base, but how many Chinese restaurants have you gone to, or Japanese, where they have Opus One, and it's a big seller? So you talk about wine overpowering the food. Most people don't think of it in those terms. They're not eating and taking a sip.
Yeah.
Which, when you're pairing food, you really need to do that.
Right. No, it's but it's weird. I always feel like it's just like it just doesn't work out. You know, it's like a path to just like indigestion. You're like, oh, I don't know. You know,
And I'm not describing the flavor profile of the two ciders very well. You have to experience for yourself.
Well,
because it is unlike anything else that you normally drink. Maybe a sour beer, but a balanced sour beer is probably closer.
It's weird. The problem is when I run out of fritters, and I'll be like, damn it, I have to make sure I don't run out of fritters.
Yeah, I'm going. There's, I did find a really nice Indian restaurant that I like close to me. I think it's in Berkeley Lake, and I want to say it's called Spice Table. Let's look. So I'm sure with like hopefully they have fritters, and Spice Room Neighborhood Bistro. They were the nicest. It seemed like a family, but it's very close to my house. It's 3 miles. Food was decent. It was good.
Sweet.
Decent.
After going, so here, and as soon as I said that,
I Sebastopol levels.
No.
It doesn't sound like.
As soon as I said that, I have to explain. I got to explain why. So before I ever went to London, all I ever heard when I would talk to anybody who had been or was from London or England, they would say, "You have no idea what you're talking about. Indian food in the United States isn't very good. You haven't had great Indian food until you go to London." So now I just preface everything. I don't want to make bold statements, so I just say good. I just say good for everything.
Good. All right. You know what? That's a Steve Greer footnote, the bookmark right there. Like I've been to London.
Good.
I really enjoyed the food from Spice Room. I've already been there twice. I don't know if they have fritters. So I'm going to ask them to make fritters. I will do the pairing with the two ciders.
Yeah. I'm going to throw this at you because you jumped into the food world. You kind of said the Indian food's decent. P.S. I've been to London. So you've been to London. There is one Indian restaurant, and it's not exactly traditional, but it's just they're great. They're good chefs, and they're making good food. Bad Mash. Have you been to Bad Mash? There was one in downtown LA and one off Fairfax.
No.
Yes,
that place is numerous. But Greer, you've never gone?
Nope.
No. Because it was in LA.
And it was in downtown too, and it was a difficult block to park on.
Don't park downtown. It sucks. Uber.
But I felt like the alcohol experience there was also really great too. They had a lot of micro-ish.
They were basically gastro-pubby Indian food. They were originally from Toronto.
This is on Fairfax.
There's one on Fairfax, and there's one on
Fairfax by Cantor's.
Yep, they went when they had a chicken tikka poutine that was as delicious as it should sound. It fulfilled the promise. It really did. And to be honest, that was the first poutine I ever had. The best poutine I've ever had. Sorry.
I was going to say cheese and Indian food.
Well, they probably use it's like it's still fries. And cheese curds and gravy isn't and there's room to improve on that. It's that thing's prefaced with like, have you been to Pink's? And I'm like, yeah, were you sober? It's like a chili dog. But a chili dog is like, it's like animal fries. Like, oh, we're going that route. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've never had poutine. I know what poutine is. It's just gravy on fries, right?
Yeah, it's like a French Canadian thing. Yeah.
I've never had it.
curd. It's like
and
cheese
gravy.
curd. I
Yeah,
think.
it's yeah. I mean, look, I've had it, and I've also had it where it was like, well, this is just delicious, and it's on fries. I mean, it was like I had like braised short rib on fries. I mean, beef and potatoes, great, whatever. But it's too bad. It's hard. Darn it. Wait. I will do this. I will try and comb Colorado to see if there's any Indian food that might be up to your level. You know what? We'll put this out. We'll share this on ETGT and on my profiles. Like, I want London level Indian food in Colorado, and we'll see. Because I've not been to London, so right now you are the go-to here. You're the
yeah, but you grew up in an Indian household where everybody was cooking.
I just tell you, my mom was a very good cook. Let's just squash that.
Oh, okay.
Squash that right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I gotta say, I like Spice Room. I think it was very good.
Okay.
But yeah.
So we're gonna try, Perrin. Connor, are you guys gonna try cider?
I'm gonna figure out this doll fritter thing, and I'm gonna probably hopefully be able to do it in the air fryer, and then I mean, look, if I'm I'm gonna try and use some of that cider that I'm gonna get for another episode where I'm gonna try cider at burgers. I guess. Jesus. All right.
No, that's lambic and burgers on the other episode.
I need another. I need the Greer fridge. For the unusual bev. I already asked.
Hey, I got a question.
Yeah.
What's going to be the other dish that we have? Tikka masala. What are we doing? With the fritters.
I don't know. Oh, I mean. Oh, actually, I got a little. You know what? I got a mission for you. Okay. You are gonna make. I actually have with and you don't need the Instant Pot for this actually. I have a recipe for chicken sog. And one of the things I learned from using the Instant Pot and doing, kind of learning, kind of perfecting these chicken curry recipes is I really like chicken breast. I think growing up in the U.S. and just having chicken breast is kind of the quote norm. I think it reheats fairly well. Chicken breast I kind of like cold. For some reason I like leftover chicken breast more than leftover dark meat, right? But the problem with chicken breast, and anyone will tell you, is boneless thighs are better, they don't dry out as easily. So I have a method, and I'll totally share you the recipe, but basically you make a chicken sog, all you need is a good heavy bottom pot, right? You're going to make the garam masala, like I said. You're going to take whole chicken breasts, and you're going to brown them on each side. Right, so you get some nice color on each side, and the seasoning will be on there to kind of flavor the bottom of the pot. And then you'll remove them. The chicken breast is raw still in the middle. That's fine. That's actually a good thing. Then you're going to do kind of the whole yin-yang, whatever, of making a curry sauce. So onion, you add onion to the same pot, you cook it down, okay? You're going to have some spinach that you'll have blanched, thrown into boiling water for 2 minutes till it very much softens. You'll put it in a food processor so it's chopped up. Spoiler alert, you can get frozen chopped spinach and just use that too. That works as well. So you throw that in the pot with those cooked down onions, more garam masala, and you just cook that into the sog sauce, okay? And if you really want to be baller, you'll have taken some onion rings, sliced thin onion, and fry those onions. It'll flavor the oil. Then you add the chicken back into that mix of the spinach and everything that's been cooking in there. And then you add a little bit of, you can add heavy cream or yogurt. Usually I'll add yogurt. And then you put the lid on. And then you let that kind of simmer for a bit, thicken it up. Then you take that chicken breast and you cut it up. It's raw in the middle, that's fine. Because what's going to happen is it's going to finish cooking in the sauce. And seriously, in 3 to 5 minutes, the chicken breast will be totally cooked. And the whole key to it is you built the sauce first. See, you build the sauce first, you get it down to its consistency. One of the problems I had before was overcooking the chicken breast because the sauce consistency wasn't right. So what you really want to do is build the curry sauce. No. It makes a lot of sense when it's all written out. It's very, very simple. And it's like garam masala, tomato paste, onion, garlic.
Well, then maybe I won't even pick Indian food up. I'm going to figure out how to make fritters and chicken sog.
Make
and
done deal.
And I'll do the cider pairings.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, this is so
You know
fun.
what'd be really cool is you try this chicken sog and you will kind of like give me the rhyme and reason of what beverage to have. Who knows? Maybe you'll reach for something. Maybe you'll reach for a Hungarian white wine.
A glass of ferment?
I don't know. Maybe rubbing alcohol. I don't know what else is going on. Whatever Troy's cooking up
cool,
next.
Guys.
No, this
How
is
are you
great.
feeling for today's episode number 2?
I've got my marching orders. I'm ready to go. We're gonna make one.
Me too. I got mine.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again for another good one, and we'll see you for the next episode 3. Eat This, Drink That with Ollie, Steve, and Ryan. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right.